All right, boys, listen. There was an article put out this week by former U.S. men's national team player Eric Wynalda. It was published in The Guardian, an English newspaper, and he was explaining the problem with youth soccer here in America. I was sent this article. Brooks, I believe you sent it to me. Thank you very much.
I did.
And I read the title and I went, oh boy. All right, here we go. Eric Wynalda. Let's see what he's got to say. And it's a good 5 to 7 minute read, but I agreed with every single point that he made.
Yes.
It's less about him. It's not about him. It's about the state of U.S. soccer and the pay to play and how expensive it is. And now what he put, stay to play to stay or stay to play, or however he stated it.
Yeah, stay to play.
Yeah,
I have the article up. Yeah,
it's expensive. Youth soccer is expensive. What happens?
The de-emphasize of the high school game and club games not meaning as much anymore, and it doesn't help the development of the player. And
it's a great article. I mean, you got to admit, right? And I agree with one point. There's 2 points specifically that stuck out to me. I do not like the clubs have taken away high school soccer. U.S. soccer has taken away how important high school soccer is. Call me an old school guy. I love high school soccer. I love the passion you can have while playing for your school and playing for your teammate or your schoolmates. I absolutely loved that, going to a rival school. I loved that. That doesn't happen anymore. I don't think there's rivalries in youth soccer too much anymore. I don't know, man. And then one of the other pieces that I really agreed with was, and Shook, I'd love your opinion on this, that he said there's a lot of good midfielders. We got 1,000 good midfielders here in the USA because they all know how to pass sideways and they all know how to hold the ball. But no one knows how to attack. We don't have a true 9. We don't have a player who can go at people and score goals. And that's something I have been saying for maybe 15 years now. One of my big problems with youth soccer and youth coaches is they find a good player who likes to dribble and go at people and they say, oh, you need to be a team player. You need to pass the ball. Let's see how many assists you can get. F that, man. Listen, you get a player who can score a goal and loves to attack, you need to embrace that and have the kid get better at it. Yep. And really tell him, we need that, not only on your team or in this state or in this country. We need players who can score goals. So those are my 2 big takeaways from this article. Shook, I'd love your thoughts on the article and what you thought about it.
All right, we can go back to the high school part and how the youth game has no rivalries. I think big part of that problem is we have so many clubs in this area and our top teams never play each other. We're all playing in these regional leagues and national leagues. So you've got a quality opponent 5 minutes away, but we're going to fly 5 hours to Austin to go play 4 teams from other parts of the country. And with at least in our case, with the Midwest being so strong, we go down there and win 4 games by an aggregate of 15-1, and then we come back into state cup games and we're only winning 1 or 2-0 with quality opponents where no financial stress, no time stress, no stress on the family. Is mom going? Is dad going?
I need to miss
and
school.
You only play that team once every 2 years maybe, so how do you get a rivalry?
Yep.
So it's tough. I mean, if it was all under one umbrella, where we had a true pyramid of every club and every league, playing for this national championship or whatever you want to call it, you might get some rivalries. But with 3 organizations running their own league or system, it's hard. I mean, we don't even play in the same organization as several clubs in the area.
Yeah.
And how sad is that? How sad is that? You never get to see. You just never get to see some players and teams, and it's like you. Oh God.
Yeah. No, at least in the case with one of the teams that I coach, we are far more familiar with our rival in Kansas City and our rival in St. Louis than we are with anybody else in Michigan. And that's incredible. We played a Kansas City team 6 times. They're the current national champs at U9, and we played them 6 times.
Wow.
And I can't tell you if there's a team in Michigan we played more than twice. Maybe one team we played twice in 2 years.
Yeah, it's
sad. It's a sad state of affairs.
Yeah, Klaus de Boer came out a few years ago. In Soccer America interviewed him, and Klaus and I have talked. When he was at DCFC doing a lot of stuff when Ben Pierman was there, and he hit the point very hard, and I very much agreed with him. Was we've taken this game of club soccer as like the all importance of, if I don't play another team in another state, how am I going to get better? The irony is that, like Shooky just brought up, is that it's really sad that a team that's 10 to 15 minutes away, you've only played twice, and you've played a team from an out of state 6 or 7 times already in a regional league. Klaus's argument, which I very much agreed with, was if we centered the focus, each state centered the focus back on everyone playing each other within the state, then that will improve the quality, and it'll also save people money and travel expenses, and then we can worry about getting to play other teams in the other region, in the other state, or in Chicago or whatever. Like, it's the focus, and this has, I think, been driven by parents for expectations. I think showcases have crushed and killed the idea of what games mean, because you have all these, and it's all about this now, of like, I'm going to run a big showcase down at Grand Park in Indianapolis. And listen, I love going to Grand Park, and I've seen a lot of great soccer there. College, youth, USYS, USSDA, when it was back in the day when they had the summer playoffs and showcase there. But the idea of I need to go play at a showcase every 3 times a year because my son Timmy or Jimmy need to go be seen by a Division 2 or 3 coach is absurd, especially when you're not playing in the highest division of that showcase. And believe me, I was an NAIA coach and I was recruiting, that was my job. And I never touched the 3rd or 4th division teams because it was just absurd of why you would even do that. And I'm sorry that parents had gotten, conned into doing this, essentially. But this idea, you need to be at a tournament every weekend and you don't need to play the teams in their area, is really a horrible direction that this has gone in.
Is the focus now on more about money and more about building my club and building things for the coach and having the coach be a full-time coach and have him be a winner, rather than the focus where it should be, which is the sport and the kid? Actually, the kid, then the sport.
Yes.
Right?
We've become very, very good at developing organizations in this country and not players.
Yeah.
Not 501c we're talking about businesses.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's all youth sports, not just soccer. It's,
And I struggle a little bit because, listen, I grew up, I'm 42 now, but and when I was going through the youth ranks, we were coached by, my high school coach was a science teacher, right? and he played some college soccer, so he loved soccer and he was a science teacher. Mm-hmm. But, and for all his faults, you could tell though that he loved the sport and he cared about the kids, right?
Yep.
My youth team coach was an ex-professional, and then my dad was the assistant coach who's an ex-professional, and they cared. That was the only, they both had full-time jobs, and that was their thing. In the evening, they came out, and I played for the Wolves, and they coached us, and we were a very good team. Yeah. But what did they weren't doing it to make money. They did it because they cared about the kids and the sport, and they loved the sport. Yeah. Nowadays, you don't find very many youth team coaches who care about the kids and the sport. Yeah. They don't want to give back like what those guys were doing, like my high school coach, or my dad, and the head coach of my youth team were doing. They were giving back. They were giving their time. They were earning $3 an hour, if that, right? Yeah. And then we had to travel. We had to do all that. Nowadays, it's all about the money and how big can this organization get, and how can we get more kids in. There's also one of my big things these days is, listen, if we hold a tryout for whatever team, whatever age group, and we get 100 kids. Back in the day, it was, we got one team and we can only take 18, so the rest of you are cut. See ya, 72 players or
go play rec soccer.
See you later.
Or pickup or whatever.
Or 82 players. See you later. Yeah. Now it's hold on a minute. We can get an A team, a B team, a C team, and can we pull another kid or 2 kids from somewhere? We can get 4 teams out of this. Yeah. And they're all paying the same amount. It's the A team still $400 compared to the D team still $400, but how, and I think Eric Wynalda's spot on with,
The pay-to-play stuff.
It's a
as
pay-to-play,
well.
and now we've taken it a step further with, okay, you got to go to 2 tournaments every, in the fall and 2 tournaments in the spring, and then you've got to stay at this hotel so that we can benefit, the club can benefit, and we can make more money because we signed a contract with X hotel or tournament organization.
Yeah. And every club has to have a tournament. It's like we all have to host one, and I get it. Some of it's maybe to fund the club. That's fair. But it's like everyone has to, like, how many, I swear, I'll go out and scout. I'll be like, I'll look at stuff like around the country, like if there's any big tournaments or whatever. And it's like, oh, ECNL is playing their playoffs at the same time as MLS Next. Well, what if I've seen enough regional teams in MLS Next where I want to go see ECNL, but I want to make sure I see other teams from other regions of MLS Next, but the playoffs are the same damn time. And then it's on one side of the country or in Texas, and then one's in North Carolina or South Carolina. I'm like, and it affects everyone, scouts, college coaches. It stretches everyone to the brim. And I just think, like Shuki said, a pyramid where everyone plays in the same league, where you move up and down. It's so much easier. It's just the battle between USYS, ECNL, MLS Next, NPL. Whatever other stupid thing we have going on, it's too much. It's way too much. We're classifying things as elite when they're not really elites. We like to throw around these adjectives and verbs of like
elite,
how
premier,
great.
and academy.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's
just nice, fancy, snazzy
it's
words.
just like,
that's about it.
And you look at it, it's like it's so stretched. If you just put all these kids together and you form quality teams and you played quality competition, we would get to where we would get and produce more players, but everyone has their own idea and no one wants to work together. That's the problem.
Is it watered down? Is American youth soccer watered down with the amount of kids we have playing now compared to what we had playing years ago? And I think obviously now with the sport the way it's grown in the country and in the world and more access to watching it and bigger clubs, whatever, I feel that the level of soccer nowadays is not any better than it was 20 or 25 years ago. I think if you were to take 2 or 3 of those top teams from 20, you take a 16-year-old team from 25 years ago and you transport them to today and you say, all right, you're going to play against the top team of today of U16 players. I think it's the same. I think it's a draw, or the team from 25 years ago wins. Chuck, I'd love your thought. What do you think?
No, I think we're all aware now that I think there's been a study done that we're finally on a decline in participation in youth soccer.
Yep.
The
Are we?
last
I haven't
3
seen
years.
that.
Yeah.
The Alpine study or whatever it was, I was in a U.S. soccer meeting and that came across and it raised some real red flags for them. Why are numbers decreasing for the first time? And I don't really know. I mean, if we could have hit critical mass here with what's happened in the last 5 years globally, who knows?
Yeah.
I think the tops are still relatively close, as you said. I think we have a lot more good players in the middle now than we did then.
Sure.
Yeah.
But then how we classify rec, premier, select, elite, I don't know. I think they love it convoluted, so no one can ever point a finger or figure out what's really going on.
Yep.
And they can just. Some of these organizations are really good at making money.
Yes.
And
yes,
I think you nailed it.
I mean, does somebody want to play that 76 Vardar team?
Is Mazanoff on that team?
I mean, you've got the 76 Vardar team,
Yeah.
the 80 Blazers team, the 82 Vardar team. You take those teams and transport them to today.
Yeah.
I don't see them losing. I do not see them losing to any team I've seen played in the city. But here's the sad thing: is because, and nowadays, as I said, we've got full-time coaches, we've got full-time trainers, we've got a lot more stuff right now.
Yeah.
But why would those teams from back then win? Because they're probably, I don't know. I just feel like they would.
So for me, so we can talk about the difference of style of play. Obviously, it was a lot different back then.
Yeah.
Competitiveness though is a a lot different. To me, with the current state of what soccer is, and Eric Wynalda said, we'll go to his comment of we have a bunch of good midfielders but no great midfielders, and they're playing east to west and south. I think the fascination of what Pep Guardiola did at Barcelona, and everyone was like, ooh, 1-2 touch, we do this, we do that. Like, and I think, we've had guys, I think like Scott Armour's kind of chimed in a bit, and, I've talked to people about this. I think we as a nation have looked at what Pep has done at Barca, and we have gone to places like Belgium and France, and we have really looked and asked, well, what do you do? Like, we need to do what you do. Well, if you really think about it, and we look at the French national team, what would France be if, let's be honest, if they weren't a melting pot and they didn't get a lot of people from other countries, let's say a lot of African countries, and what would their national team be? They wouldn't win World Cups with that. If all those players that were in that starting 11 actually played for their true nationality, they would not win World Cups. Right. So why are we taking advice from France? Secondly, Belgium has had this great group that's come up, but again, they are a melting pot. They get some people too. It's why aren't we looking at ourselves and saying, these are the players we have athletes. What can we take from other countries that work with us, but we create a system that maybe is good for us and our players, and not have these other countries hover over and be like, are we doing this correctly? Because I feel like that's whatever the pass system was for USSDA they had with the belt. They were like, you had to meet these qualifications. Double pass. And like, why are we doing this? Like, why do we need someone else's standards to say that we aren't a good soccer nation?
And it's difficult. All these other countries want to take their lead, but yes. I mean, you can fit the entire UK in the Lower Peninsula of Michigan.
Yeah.
So I mean, and then we're trying to fit something, for intercontinentally. We're huge.
Yeah.
I mean, we were down in Texas for a weekend, and I ran into an old player that I coached, and I'm like, hey, what are you doing here? And she's like, oh, I drove over to see my sister play. I go, how long was the drive? And she goes, 8 hours. And that was only partway through Texas. Yeah. I mean, our size it's a strength, but it's also a weakness.
Right. It is.
Of trying to, and how you play in California based on being outside for 12 months versus being in the Midwest where you might only be outside playing for 6 months. I mean, everything's going to be a bit different, and we're trying to solve it with one broad stroke. It's crazy.
And you can't do it. And the part I go back to with the Barcelona stuff, with how kids are developed and everything, are the expectations parents have that a bunch of Xavis and Iniestas are going to be created. It's not. Like, parents need to look at themselves, and they need to understand that your kid probably hasn't played a lot of pickup soccer. He maybe rolled the ball around on your child's foot when they were 2 or 3 years old, but they weren't outside playing in the streets, playing pickup soccer till mom called you home for dinner, and there are parts of our country where that happens a lot, but they don't understand the soccer IQ part and what it takes to play that way. And they think, well, if my son in the midfield just bumps the ball left and right and plays east to west, well, I deserve to be in an MLS academy. Well, no, because you don't do anything different. And if you want to look at the different, go on ESPN Plus sometimes and look at the FA Youth Cup. You want to see different makers and players and athletes and what they do and what level you need to be. That's the problem. There's this notion that, and we're all still figuring this issue out too, with like, as soccer grows, as MLS, it gets into year 30 here in the next couple of years. It's very still young in this country, but the things that parents need to look at their child and be like, it's just an average player. You know what I mean? And there's very few players that are elite that I go out and see every weekend that I'm like, that kid needs to go overseas, or that kid's going to be a very good player. There's some kids that go to MLS academies, they get trials, and I'm like, really? Like him? But he's not really athletic. He just plays a certain way. It's the style. It's everything.
I think a lot of it has to do with what you said.
Yeah.
Nowadays, kids are playing soccer in an organized fashion, whereas years ago and in these other countries, they're going out and playing soccer for fun.
Exactly.
They're trying things. They're playing soccer every single day.
There are no parents around.
They're cutting their teeth and cutting their knees on the playground, because that's the only place they can play. Yes. And they're playing till dark until their parents call them in. Here, it's, I've got soccer on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and then I got a game on Friday. And you know what? I don't feel like on Wednesday and Friday playing soccer, so I'm going to just
Yes.
play video games. In these other countries, they're still playing soccer on those days, and they're trying different things, and they're doing a lot of different things. They got better foot skills, they got better everything, because they're playing rather than just organized drills for
But also it's
coaches
like-
who care about wins and losses.
It's like when you like in inner cities when like basketball and everything, or just in general. Like, I mean, I would have went to Birmingham Groves and there was a basketball court there once, but they removed it because they were done a little things. They were done some stuff, but every night there were kids playing, and you wanted to stay on the court and play the whole time. I mean, in Europe, it's
That's
like when you
soccer.
have the small field, when you have the small, street soccer fields, it's like we're gonna play king in the court. Like, how long can we stay in here and be competitive? And you don't get that. And then you can't use parks around here because they need to keep them. The club teams need to, you got to pay to use them.
Half of them are locked up now anyway.
Exactly. You
because-
can maybe get on a high school field if it's open and you jump the fence, or maybe there's a field next to it you can maybe get into, but you really can't, like, everything you need to pay for to use. And that's the issue too, is there's nowhere to really play besides in your front yard and your backyard's fine, but if it's not big enough, that's the issue as well.
To Wynalda's point about there's thousands of good midfielders,
Yeah.
well, those thousands of good midfielders only show up when there's cones and bibs.
Exactly.
The great midfielders, or the ones who will be great, are showing up to play when there's not bibs, there's not a coach, and there's not cones, and they organize and they'll police a game on their own.
Yeah.
And there's far too few players like that around.
The funny thing is, I've been interviewing a lot of players in the last year, a lot of good youth players who are moving on to good levels in the game. Excuse me, people like Amalia Villarreal, Chloe Ricketts, Keely Titmus.
And you got DeJuan Jones you
DeJuan
interviewed,
Jones, who's
come
obviously
through the
made it.
system. Yeah.
But all those players seem to have a common trait that I found, and it's the love of the game, and not just the love of the game of just, I love it. It's, I want to win. I want to play. And you know what I do when I go home? I do more ball work with myself on a wall, or I jump rope, or I'm running on a treadmill, or you know what? I go out and find my own training. I do a next level training. And then when they don't do it, I take a day off, but I'm watching soccer, or I'm talking soccer, or I'm in my basement for 10 minutes. That is the
It's not
difference.
just playing FIFA. That's not soccer.
And it's funny that that is the type of the competitive spirit.
Yes.
You don't find that in a lot of kids these days. I think it's less. Its competitiveness is getting less and less, and we might be delving into the everybody gets a participation trophy, right? Like we don't want to go into that, but that's probably what happens to a lot of it. Like I don't really need to try. We're gonna get a trophy anyway, so finish second, third, whatever it is. But I am finding, though, a lot of the times these days with the lack of players who are, I would say, players who want to really go out and make a difference in a game. My dad used to have a saying. He says, "Listen, if you want to be noticed on a field and you gotta grab the game by the scruff of the neck.
Mm-hmm.
Go and win the game.
Yep.
Go and win the game. And if you don't, you can at least come off the field saying you tried your best."
Yeah.
And I don't see that from a lot of kids these days. I see a lot of the kids going, we'll get them next time. And I think Jeff, it comes down to what you were saying earlier. You play a team that's in Kansas City, which is several hours away from here. You play them a couple times, but you don't play the local rival. So you don't. If you were to play the local rival several times a year, you'd be like, I am so sick. We've lost 2 games in a row to that team. Yeah. You know what? I'm going to grab the game on the scruff of the neck, and I'm going to go at it, and I'm going to score goals today. But it just doesn't happen anymore, right? Yeah. I think it's things like that.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yep.
I've yet to see, with my own eyes, a player who wants to grab the game by the scruff of the neck and go, give me the ball. We're going to win this game today. Every time you give me the ball, whether I failed the last time you give it to me again. And you keep giving me the ball because I'm the man. You find
kids don't understand how to deal with failure either. I mean, I see a lot of kids that make mistakes, and honestly, sitting on the side with the parents a lot. I mean, I can't tell you how many kids I've seen, like, when they make a mistake, they look to mom and dad and they want to find an answer. Like,
and that was in the Eric Wynalda piece, right?
Yeah.
As well, he said kids are afraid to make mistakes these days. And sorry, but soccer is a game of mistakes. It's a chess
Every
match.
sport is.
Yeah, it's a chess match. Did this move work? Nope. Okay, bring it back. Did this move work? Nope, bring it back. Like, you've got to take chances in the game of soccer, and that's how you're going to succeed. I'm disillusioned with the youth game these days. I think there's a way forward. I do not know how to solve it, but there is a way forward, and I think we will figure it out hopefully soon.
Yeah, and I think that's the one thing lacking in the Wynalda article is he's pointed out all these problems,
Yeah.
and I think we can all agree
Yeah.
they're present.
Yeah.
What's the solution?
Yeah.
Give me one solution or
Yeah.
give us one idea.
Yeah.
You're right. You're not
And
wrong.
that's what needs to be
You're not wrong.
identified.
Yep.